Hey, welcome to Ghost Tales. I'm Ashley Knight of WAVY 10. This show centers around just haunted places, spooky encounters that people have had, and just naturally interesting things about the paranormal. Here with me today is our guest, Blake Smith. Blake and I
Hi.
are actually coworkers.
Yes, I work here. I'm not usually let into this nice room. They have too many nice things.
Now, we used to work on the weekends together, and you became a photographer and moved to the weekday, Monday through Friday.
Yes.
Welcome to the weekdays.
Everyone, yeah, I know it's weird. Everyone's like seeing me and being like, "Why are you here?" Yeah, they think I'm stealing all the overtime or something, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here with us today, and you're here to talk today about an interesting experience that you had with a Ouija board.
Yeah, yes,
And
a
it's
Ouija
not
board.
just your normal kind of experience with a Ouija board, because a lot of people are like, oh, I played with my cousin or my sibling or whatever, and you could tell they were moving it around
Yeah.
and it was kind of, fake or whatever. But tell us about, first of all, your first encounter with the Ouija board. Did you own this Ouija board or did someone bring it to you?
So it's funny that you said that, like, you have a story that's not like everyone else's. You did it with your cousin or your sibling. I actually did do it with my cousin and my sibling. But it happened about around my sophomore year of high school, so
Mhm.
about 6 years ago. And every weekend, me and my stepbrother would go to my cousin's house, because she had her own place, and she had things like Ouija boards just sitting in her closet. And so, like I said, it was in her closet. We were entering out her closet one day, and I look up and I see this Ouija board, and I think nothing of it because it says Hasbro on it. Like it literally
How
said,
harmful could it be?
yeah, it said 13 ages and up, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm 13, I could totally use that. That's
You were 13 at the time.
no, I meant like I
Oh,
was
okay.
above the age of 13, and everyone that would have been using it was age appropriate for this Hasbro
Right.
Ouija
So
board.
so you bring it out, you decide to take a turn.
Yeah, we're like, okay, well, let's do a séance.
Mhm.
And we sit down, and you know, we make a promise to each other that we're not going to, try to prank. We're going to take it seriously. If nothing happens, then nothing happens. And then we'll know for sure that Ouija boards and Hasbro are full of crap.
So you go into it fully trustworthy of the other players.
We went into it fully trustworthy of the process and of each other. And so, because my stepbrother, he has the emotional capacity of like a lima bean, so he's not the kind of person who would try to play a prank on someone.
Right,
And then
right.
my cousin is like, it was her idea, and she's very like, she believes in, this ghost tales and the spiritual and everything.
Yeah. So she's
So
taking it seriously.
yeah, she kind of was like almost like the leader, almost like she asked the questions and everything. So we light some candles, we wait for it to get dark. They say like witching hour starts at like midnight or something, or like around like midnight to like 3ish, or it ends
Uh-huh.
at like 6 because that's when the sun comes up. So it was somewhere between like midnight and like 3 that we sat down in this dark apartment in Chesapeake and busted out the Hasbro Ouija board. And my cousin had a dog, a very large dog, like an Alaskan Malamute. Like,
Uh-huh.
it looks like a grown man on 4 legs. Like, it's
Okay.
huge.
Wow.
And so this dog was always super happy and super playful, and very just out there and outgoing. And as soon as we started doing this, it went into the corner of the room, just sat into the corner of the room and watched us from a distance. And it was
Hmm.
really weird because that's not his normal behavior. So that was
Yeah.
kind of like a tail sign that like something was a little off. And so we started to communicate with some spirit.
Did it start moving right off or did it
It took a
take
couple seconds,
yeah.
like almost like the board was like warming up, you know. Um, yeah, and so like we kind of sat there and we thought, it wasn't doing anything. And
Mhm.
then, finally we got an answer to, is anyone there? And the planchette, which is the triangle piece, it said yes. It slid to yes. All three of our arms went to yes, like pretty slowly. And so, I obviously, as soon as that happens, we all start looking at each other like, who's moving it?
Yeah.
Who's doing that?
So
Like,
immediately the trust goes out the window.
yeah. But then, like, I'm saying that because I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And everyone else is just like quiet, like, oh, that's weird. And
Mhm.
so we asked the spirit that we're talking to what its name is. and it spells out a name that I've never heard before or seen written ever.
What was it?
Cedrus.
Like Cedris?
Yep. Cedrus. I've never heard that name before. None of us had ever heard that name before, which was, again, kind of a weird thing about it, because it's like, huh, you know, none of us read books at the time, you know. And it was just like a really weird name.
Uh-huh. So you keep asking it questions and
yeah, we kept asking it questions, and eventually for that night we called it wraps after it started to like not be as like responsive, and it was kind of just us, you know, sitting there all holding hands essentially. And so we decided the next day, because it was a weekend, we're like, oh yeah, it's Sunday, let's do it again. Why not? Let's see if Cedrus is.
So nothing really happened besides just kind of
other than the dog,
other
than the dog being weird and just making contact with something.
So
you know, the first night it was super mild. Like
the second night that you started getting a little nervous.
Yeah, it was like a first date. It was really, it was really casual. Cedrus kept it casual, yeah. And so we're like, okay, well, we have to see him again.
Okay. And so the second night you go in and you're asking questions, and is that when it starts getting a little too much?
Yeah, that's when it started to get weird, because after that we did a little more research into Ouija boards and kind of like how to use it, because even though this thing was made by Hasbro, it did not have instructions on how to properly use a Ouija board.
Okay.
And so we figured out that there are clear signs that things are wrong if you're using a Ouija board. For example, if the board starts to count down through numbers or through the alphabet,
yes,
that supposedly means, according to the all-knowing internet, that it is leaving the board almost. Like the spirit is trying to leave the board.
Is going to leave the board.
I read that
when it starts counting down.
Yes.
So all of your fingers are going to 10,
yeah,
9,
it's going across.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at what point did you stop it?
We stopped it as soon as that happened, because before it had started doing that, my cousin asked this really dumb question. She asked, "Who's your favorite of the people sitting here?" It said it went BS.
And that's you, Blake Smith.
Yes.
Okay.
And so
hold it right there. Oh. We're going to take a quick commercial break.
Oh, fun.
And we're going to tell some more after we come back from this short commercial break. We'll be right back. All right, we are back with Ghost Tales. I'm your host, Ashley Knight. We're here with Blake Smith, and he has joined us today to keep telling us about this crazy interaction you had with a Ouija board. You've said, okay, the first night wasn't so spectacular. You did make contact with a spirit of some kind who said his name was Cedrus.
Yes.
Then the second night, you started asking it more questions. You said, hey, who's your favorite? It said you.
Yes.
You were the spirit's favorite. Then it started counting down on the board, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which meant it's going to come out of the board.
It was attempting to escape the board.
And so that's when you stopped it.
Yes. Well, that's when, yeah, so there's a little spot on the board that says goodbye. And so you're supposed to say goodbye every time you end one of these sessions, because it's almost like a phone call. But the thing that was so weird about it counting down was that I actually don't remember it counting down. My cousin and my brother told me that's why they had to stop, because after it had said my name, I had this weird sort of moment, like I don't know if you've ever had this moment, like where you sort of just like zone out and you kind of like don't really pay attention to like what's happening. So I kind of just like zoned out, like I didn't realize that my arms were going across. And so like that was really weird for me too. Like I had like almost like an out of body moment for a second.
You're just so freaked out, the spirit said.
Yeah.
You were his favorite.
Yeah. And so after all that, my cousin's like, okay, well, that's creepy. And since you're his favorite, Blake, you can keep the board. And I didn't want to. I was like, no, it's your board. You keep it. What if you want to play with it later?
Did you just decide to take it out any other time?
I took it. I took it because I didn't want my sister, or my cousin, I call her my sister, my cousin, I didn't want her to have it, like in her house and everything, because she lives alone and everything. So I took it home. You were being
the protective.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll get rid of this evil thing. And getting rid of it meant sticking it in my closet for a little bit. But then weird stuff started happening to me at my house.
Like what?
in high school, I got home before my little brother, who's 6 years younger than me. And so I was sitting, our rooms were right next to each other. And the staircase leading downstairs was right in front of his room. And so one day I was sitting in my room with my door open, and I hear something like walk up the stairs. Like I hear the creaks of the stairs, and then I hear something go into the room next to me, and I hear the door shut. Like clear as day, door shut right next to my room. And so in my head, I'm like, this little jerk. My brother didn't come and say hello to me. That is rude. Like I'm here.
You're assuming that was his brother. That was your brother coming home and
absolutely.
going
And
to
so
his
I
room.
busted in the room like the Kool-Aid man, expecting to really give him a piece of my mind, and there was no one there. It was completely empty. And then I hear the front door open downstairs, and I go down the stairs, and there's my little brother walking in, and he's like, why do you look mad?
Yeah, why do
you look weird right now? And I was like, did you just get off the bus, or like did you come up here, close your door, and then go back outside for some reason? And he was like, no, I just got off the bus. And then as he said that, like the bus just drives by behind him.
Oh, that's straight out of a movie.
And then like my dog, I have a Yorkie, and I kept the Ouija board in my closet, and I would catch her staring at my closet, like
that's
in the middle of the night, like all the time, because she would sleep with me. She's one of those dogs that's like not a dog. She just treat her like a little person. And yeah, no, she would just stare at my closet and bark at nothing. And it got to the point where I was like, well, I don't want this in the house anymore. My mom especially didn't want it in the house because she was, because I tell her about it and she'd be like, no,
understandably
no, horrible.
So.
It's it's bad.
So you moved it to your car?
I put it in my trunk of my 2014 Honda Accord.
And then talk about what happened once you moved it there.
It was probably in my trunk for like a couple months. And yeah. Oh wait, no, I actually put it in my first car. My first car was a Volkswagen Jetta. And I put it in the back of my car, and I was driving to the bank one day after picking up like my first check from like my first part-time job. And I got in like a T-bone accident that completely totaled the car. And in my head, I was like, oh my goodness, I just got hit by a car. And it wasn't until I was cleaning out the car, because I realized I wasn't going to be able to take it home, that I opened it, and the only thing in the trunk was the Ouija board. Like,
wow.
Just
had you ever
there.
been in an accident before?
No, that's the
was your
first and
first
only
ever
accident I've ever been in.
Oh, wow.
And thankfully no one got hurt, but it was still kind of a little weird.
So at the time you're kind of thinking, this is because I've got the Ouija board.
I didn't think that it helped. I didn't think having...
It certainly didn't help.
I was just like, I thought of it as like having a telephone in your car, like a limousine, except in this case it was like to talk to spirits.
The other world, yeah.
You never know when you're going to have to pull over on the side of the road and
make a phone call.
Yeah, make a phone call to an old relative or something. Yeah.
Keep it for emergency purposes.
Yeah, I joke about it, but I definitely it was definitely spooky, and it definitely like caught my attention when I saw it.
Okay, so you removed it from your car?
Yeah, well,
hopefully?
actually
No, you kept it in the next car.
I was trying to figure out a way to get rid of it, because by this time, it's like I'm looking for colleges and everything. And then my mom didn't want it at the house, so when I went to college, I ended up just taking it there, just leaving it at college.
Did you leave it in your car or in your dorm?
I left it in my dorm.
In the dorm.
Yeah, I lived alone like my freshman year. I got lucky because my like roommate decided to bail on me last second, so I got a suite for
All
two
to
people,
yourself.
all to myself. No, it
Okay.
was great. It was amazing.
All to yourself, as far as you know.
Yeah, quote unquote,
Yes.
to myself. Spooky.
Yeah. Did anything crazy happen there?
Yeah, so I started having these dreams about it. And I had a couple, where it was kind of just like just weird, just cold sweat nights, like, waking up in the middle of the night type thing. But there was one that really stuck out to me. And it really like changed like how I thought about it, and it's the reason why I will never mess with a Ouija board ever again.
Okay. And hang on to that. We're going to take one more commercial break and talk about this final act in this whole play that is the Ouija board. All right.
The Hasbro Ouija board.
We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Ghost Tales, and I am your host, Ashley Knight. With me is Blake Smith. He's talking about his very unusual interaction with a Ouija board, which has carried you now from one house to a car to another car to now your dorm in college.
Yes.
Strange occurrences happening in all these places that have never happened before. You got into your first ever accident with this Ouija board in your back seat.
Yep.
First and only accident,
Yep.
right? You were
I-
T-boned.
Yes.
So now you've got it at college. You're trying to get rid of it basically at this
Well,
point.
Well, I had a dream where I had woken up in my college dorm room. So I didn't know it was a dream when I woke up in it. It was one of those dreams where
Yeah.
everything is so real. You were napping in the dream. And you wake up from that nap. It was a really good nap dream. And someone was knocking on my door and I opened it and it was all of my friends from freshman year that lived on my floor, and they all came in and like they asked me, "Hey, we haven't seen you in a while. What's going on with you? You good?" And in the dream, like, this isn't even like me speaking. It was like, but it was myself talking. And I went, "Yeah, guys, I feel like there's somebody watching me. I feel like I have something like uneasy in my life." And I feel on edge. And I said this to my friend in the dream, and my friend looked at me, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget this dream. He looks me like dead in the eye, and he goes, "Blake, it's that Ouija board. If you keep using it, you're gonna die."
Wow.
And so I woke up and I was like, okay, I got to get rid of it. Like, if my subconscious dream self is telling me, like, warning me like that, like,
Yeah.
I've seen enough movies where I'm like, nah, I think it's time to dispose of this toy, this Hasbro toy.
This supposed toy.
Yeah, supposed toy.
So you found there were girls living down the hall from you
Yes.
that
Yeah,
you decided to
there
give
were
this to.
there were two girls that were sharing a room, and I knew that they had an interest in the spiritual. They didn't really believe in it. So I was like, yeah, you guys want this
One
Ouija
experiment?
board?
Here you go.
And they go, well, I don't know why they did this, but I think one of them was like, well, we work on like the bartering system. She's like, I can't take it from you. She's like, I have to trade you. And I was like, okay.
What'd you trade?
I traded her for a book of spells. So you could tell like, what this girl was like, into.
Nothing. No, not even cookies.
The Colts.
Bake me some cookies.
No.
I'd rather take the cookies.
No,
than
it was a book,
book
of
of
spells.
spells.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a paperback book.
Okay.
And I never actually read it. Like, I just had it. I left it in the dorm room when I left. Yeah, so
So
whoever
it's still there.
whoever-
Who knows? It
yeah.
might still be there to this day.
Whoever moved into that room may think that they actually got accepted to Hogwarts. It's pretty cool. But yeah, and so I traded them this Ouija board.
And did they play with it right away?
They waited about a week before they had their own seance with it. And they were like, we don't want to do it on the floor. Because I had told them about my experience. And they were like, well, we don't want to do it on the floor. We don't want to get haunted. So they were like, we're going to go 2 floors down. Because we were on the third. We were on the 3rd floor of dorms. And so they're like, we're just going to do it on the 1st floor in the room. And so they go, these 2 girls and one guy from our floor as well went. And so there are 3 of them.
Mhm.
And they're all sitting in the dark with candle lit, and I was upstairs because I was like, the dream
Couldn't be far away
Yeah,
from
the
it.
dream
Yeah.
told me. They warned
didn't
me.
wanna be
They
around.
told me not to do it, so I stayed. I was listening to the dream, and they run up the stairs like very erratically, and they start banging on my door. These girls, and I open the door, and they're bawling their eyes out, like they are so frantic. And I'm like, what's wrong? Like, what happened? I thought someone, broke into the dorms or something. I thought something was like actually happening. That's how crazy they were acting. And they said that they made contact with some young spirit of a girl that I can't remember the name of, and I don't even know if they remember the name of, but they talked to her, and they got a story from this little girl that they supposedly talked to, and it told them that she had drowned in a lake down the street, and that
Wow.
it was like very, like, it was very sad.
Hmm.
And so I was like, okay, well, that's
So was
insane,
that what
you know?
made them freak out,
Yeah,
or
they
was
were.
there
Yeah, it was
was
just
there more to the story
it
and
was
they
because they had looked it up and they had
found out it
fact
was
checked it.
true?
And yeah, like a small child at the same age was
Wow.
found right down the street and drowned to death in a lake. And
Wow.
like they were, you know, they eventually were they were like, take it back, take the board back. And I
What'd you
was
say?
like, I'm sorry, I'm already through abracadabra in the spell book. It's, you know, it's getting too good. I can't give that up now.
I'm too emotionally invested
Yeah,
in this spell book that you gave me.
yeah, like I'm already I'm on frogs, and so
I've
I
graduated
can't.
from Ouija onto spells.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they wanted to give it back, and I said no, and I think they actually ended up leaving it also in that
In the
dorm
dorm room.
because my freshman year of college was COVID,
Oh,
so
okay.
we went back for spring break, and then we never went back
Hmm.
to that floor, you know, to
Oh, wow.
that evil floor.
Who knows what spirits might be haunting? Who knows what activity might be
Yeah,
happening on that
that
floor now?
freshman dorm full of
Did they say
ghosts and
goodbye?
spells.
Do you know if they said goodbye at the end of the?
You know, I'm not sure. I didn't really go through with them the correct Hasbro protocols for this board. You know, saying goodbye and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I told them that it's not really a joke and that you should, like, you know, like, cause I'm joking about it because like it's, you know, in the past, but
Yeah.
like I don't treat that thing like a joke.
It's too creepy an interaction.
Yeah.
Too yeah, too it couldn't have been made up.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just the name, just the
Because
name
you
alone.
and you were playing with your sibling and your cousin,
Yeah.
and you'd all agreed, okay, we're going to treat this seriously. Your dorm, they weren't dorm mates. They were, you know, you were
Yeah, they were just
folks down
like,
the hall.
yeah, they were just people
they
who
were
lived.
likely taking it seriously because they
Yes.
were
I
interested
mean,
in it.
if they weren't taking it seriously and they can fake cry the way that they did, I mean, they should.
It was definitely
They could
enough
be
to make
Academy
them.
Award-winning actresses with how frantic they were. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like Meryl Streep.
Oh, that's crazy.
No, it was.
That is just that's spooky.
No, it was very spooky, and I'll never mess with anything like that again. you
Yeah.
know?
Good lesson.
Yeah, good
Absolutely.
lesson. Never
Yeah.
mess with a Ouija board because like the thing that still like makes my hair stick up
Mhm.
is just thinking about the name. You know, Cedrus. Like Cedrus. I've never.
Have you looked it up since then?
We looked it up. I don't think anyone's ever had that name. Like,
You can't find anybody
yeah,
with that name.
like it's so strange. It's
Hmm.
very strange. Like, cause that name is so like haunting to me. It's just
Yeah.
like, cause I can't associate it with anything else. You know,
Yeah.
kind of sounds like
Well,
Cedric.
I guess it's lucky that nobody else has that name because then it would be bringing up those memories all the time.
Yeah,
for
then
you.
they could be a demon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on. All right. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, definitely a good lesson in,
Hope I
you
didn't
know,
talk too much.
you don't kind of, oh, we want you to talk. We want you to talk. But hopefully it was a good lesson in, you know, okay, just kind of treat things seriously and don't let it get out of hand.
Yes, wavy listeners. If you are
Yes.
listening still and you stayed till the end to this, don't mess with Ouija boards. Even if you're above the age of 13. And if you're below the age of 13, you're not even allowed to anyway without an adult.
So don't think about it.
Yeah, so don't even think
All
about
right.
it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Ghost Tales. We will see you a spooky next time. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.